Earlier, I saw a post in which some people in the comments were discussing real paranormal experiences that they've had. I almost started typing, but I hesitated. Something happened to me long ago that was certainly strange. I'm not sure I'd call it paranormal. There are other words that come to mind first. Disturbing, confusing, unforgettable, terrifying. Paranormal is harder for me to say with certainty. I was raised in a staunchly atheist household. My father was a biologist, and my mother passed away from cancer when I was 2. Dad was no nonsense. Ghost stories, haunted houses, spiritual encounters, religious anything. These were treated like taboo subjects. He always told me that there was a scientific explanation for everything, even if we don't know it yet. It's there. I think I believe that, or at least I've always said I do. Maybe that's just what I've told myself. I've never seen anything I could call undeniable proof to the contrary. Still, there's one incident that lingered in the back of my mind for over 40 years, like a stray dog that never left. I've never been able to make sense of it, mostly because it doesn't square with anything I've experienced since, or anything I know about how the world works. If I didn't still have people in my life who remember that time, and if I didn't have a newspaper clipping buried in a box of old stuff, I probably would have dismissed this whole thing as something I imagined. But it did happen. What it meant? I still can't say. If my father were still alive, he'd tell you something happened too. Whether he ever believed my first-hand account, I don't know, but he remembered the event until his dying day. There are even police records about it. What follows is my honest recollection of the scariest thing I've ever experienced. I haven't talked about it in decades. I'll tell it exactly as I remember it. Take from it what you will. I grew up in a town of about 14,000 people along the Ohio River, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests. It was truly beautiful country, especially in early fall, when the leaves turned and the hills blazed with gold and crimson. Like any small town, we had our share of folklore. Stories whispered at slumber parties, muttered in bars after a few drinks. There was one about a translucent figure down by the river, said to be the ghost of a riverboat captain's wife from the 1800s. Another centered around the decaying house at the end of the street where my cousin lived. Some claimed it once belonged to a painter who made a deal with the devil, and whose cursed works still lined the leaning walls, waiting to suck out the souls of anyone brave or stupid enough to go inside and look at them. Those were just a few of the stories that haunted our dreams and kept us awake at night. But there was one myth that scared me more than the rest. It was said that something, an entity, lived in the woods behind our backyard. People called it Blackheart. Truth be told, I don't remember much about the story itself, just that you had to watch out in those woods, because Blackheart might get you. Some said she was a witch who'd lived there since the 1700s. Others claimed she was not even human. Not a she, not a he, just something else. Something from another world. My dad used to say this was how you could tell it was all BS. Nobody can even get your story straight, he'd say. Because someone just made it up. I mostly believed him. We played in those woods all the time and never saw anything weird. Still, when the sun went down, the story got under my skin. Especially since my bedroom window faced the backyard, and from there, I had a perfect view of the tree line. I used to peek through the curtain before bed and wonder if she, or it, was out there, standing just behind the grass hidden among the trees, waiting. Sometimes I imagined a long, hairy finger curling toward me from the shadows, beckoning me to come out. I'm only telling you this because at the time, some people said Blackheart had something to do with what had happened. I'm not saying I believe that though, but I'm also not saying I know for sure it wasn't. Anyway, I'm rambling. I think I'm stalling, honestly. It's not easy to dredge all this back up. That, and I'm kind of figuring out how I feel about all of this as I write. It was October of 1984. I was 9 years old. My best friend Mara lived 3 houses down. We were on a fall break and having the time of our lives. Like most days off from school, we spent it outside, from the woods behind our neighborhood to the candy store on Bridge Street in the center of town. Even after sunset, we were allowed to stay out, so long as we stayed on our street. Mara and I had been best friends since kindergarten. We'd share a classroom every year. Our families knew each other. When you're 9, it's impossible to imagine your best friend ever not being there, until something forces you to. Sometimes, friends drift apart because someone moves away. Dad gets a new job, families relocate. It's a normal part of growing up. But what happened that October was not normal. I already mentioned that our backyard led to the woods. This wasn't unusual in our town. The whole place was practically surrounded by forest, except for the side where the river ran. You could get lost in those woods easy, so we always made sure to be careful and to always have at least one person with us. That particular section of woods, just past our backyard, had a hidden clearing. A massive field surrounded on all sides by trees. If you walked in at about 15 feet, you'd come to it. Thick woods on the way in, but then it would suddenly open up, and it felt like you'd found a secret world. Tall golden wheatgrass swaying in the wind, peaceful, secluded, and near the center of the field. A single, lonely maple tree. We really liked that tree. We used to chase each other around its trunk. It was so thick we couldn't even begin to wrap our hands all the way around it. Usually we'd run in circles, trying to see who could get close enough to tag the others back first. It always started the same way. We'd each go to the opposite sides of the trunk and count to 5. Then the chase was on. I liked to close my eyes while I counted. It wasn't part of the rules per se. I just did it. It made me feel like I was cutting off the world for a moment. When I opened them again at 1, I'd be locked in, focused only on the game. That day, we took our positions like always. "Tell me when you're ready," I said.
"Ready,"
she called from the other side of the trunk. "Okay," I replied, and looked down at my feet. I began to count aloud. 1, 2, and then just before I said 3, I heard something strange. It was brief, gone almost as quickly as it came. A sound close by. It reminded me of a single flap of enormous wings, or maybe a bedsheet snapping in the heavy gust of wind, but it was loud, and it felt close. I blinked in confusion and instinctively looked up, but all I saw was the golden canopy swaying in the breeze. "Mara? What was that?" I called out. No response. I peeked around the trunk, expecting to see her peeking back. She wasn't. I walked around the tree completely. One full circle, ending back where I started, but Mara was gone. At first, I was just confused, but the confusion quickly unraveled into panic. I turned in a slow circle, scanning the entire clearing. There was nothing. No Mara, no movement, no broken branches. The field was exactly as it had been seconds before. But when my eyes settled on the tree line at the far edge of the clearing, I felt the kind of fear I still struggled to explain. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Something had happened that should not have happened. I screamed her name. "Mara! Mara! Mara!" I've never heard my voice sound like that since. It wasn't a scream, it was a raw, primal wail, the sound of something breaking. I screamed again and again, but I knew, somehow, in the deepest, most instinctual part of me, that she couldn't hear me. Even though I had just seen her moments before, she was already gone. I remember what I was thinking. Even at 9 years old, my brain tried to explain it logically, but each theory sank under the weight of what I knew. We were in a field surrounded by forest. From where we had been standing, it would have taken even a fast adult at least 30 seconds to run from the tree to the woods. I had only taken my eyes off her for 5 seconds, maybe less. She couldn't have run off. If someone had grabbed her and sprinted away, they would have had to move faster than a cheetah and quieter than a whisper. And yet, she was gone. So I stood there, crying, screaming her name, screaming for my dad, and then suddenly, something changed. I became overwhelmed by a strange urge not to look up. I didn't know why, I just felt it. A pressure in my chest, a tightening in my throat. My body was just telling me, don't look at the sky. And then it hit me. A presence. It was invisible but heavy, dense, oppressive, and radiated something I've only ever described as hate. Pure, deliberate hate. Even now, as I write this, the hair on the back of my neck stands up. My palms sweat because I remember it vividly. There were eyes on me. I couldn't see them, but I knew they were there. Watching, studying, enjoying it. The presence wasn't on the ground, it was above me. I was about 20 steps away from the tree by then. I had already looked up when I first heard the sound, and the sky had been empty. But now something was hovering above me. No shadow, no shape, no outline, but it was definitely there. I could feel it pressing down. It felt intelligent. It felt ancient, and it wanted me to know it was there. I was certain it was enjoying my pain, like it fed on it. I knew I was in danger, real immediate danger. I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream anymore. I don't know how long I'd stood there like that. And then I heard my father's voice calling my name. He had heard my cries and come running. When he reached me, I collapsed in my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Then I blacked out. The days that followed felt like the space between dreaming and waking, foggy, silent, just unreal. My dad talked to the police a lot. They talked to me too. They kept asking the same questions over and over.
Did you see her walk off? Did you leave with someone?
I just told them the truth. I told them my story. A search and rescue team went out that day. They brought the full setup. Dogs, vehicles, people on foot. They gave the dogs a scent from Mara's clothes. They combed the forest over and over again. The search lasted days. They found nothing. No footprints, no torn clothing, no dropped objects, no trace whatsoever. Gone, like a magic trick. Of course they questioned everyone. Anyone who'd been nearby, anyone who'd ever interacted with Mara, but there was no suspect, no leads, not even a shadow of suspicion. I don't think anyone ever really believed me, because people don't just disappear. I never told them about the presence I felt that day. Even then, I knew it would sound too far-fetched. I could barely understand it myself. I still can't. I've never felt anything like it since. I also never stepped foot in those woods again. For a while, I shut down. I became quiet, withdrawn. About a year later, we moved. My dad got a new job in Chicago, and I think the big city was better for me. It gave me something else to think about. Something faster, louder. Life there didn't give me much room to dwell. The time helped too. Not because time heals anything, but because time forces you to move forward, whether you want to or not. I grew up fast in Chicago. My dad and I never really talked about what had happened. Did he believe me? He said he did, but I'm not sure. He loved me. I know that. And I don't think he ever believed I was lying. Maybe he thought I misremembered. Maybe he even believed I blocked out whatever really happened. If he had any doubts, he never voiced them. Well, not to me anyway. Now there's a great distance between the person I am and that little boy I was in 1984, and a greater distance still between Mara and me. I think about her more than anything. Where did she go? Was she taken? And worst of all, what was it like for her? My heart breaks for her and for her parents. Sometimes I wish I could just see a video of what really happened. Like there was a hidden camera in that tree that captured it all. I dream about that sometimes. In the dream, I do see what happened, and it's worse than anything I've ever imagined. But when I wake up, I never remember what I saw, just the fear, just the weight of it. It's like whatever happened was too strange, too wrong for the daylight. Hey everyone. If you enjoyed the narration, hit the like, sub to the channel, and leave a comment about what stories you'd like me to narrate. Also, if you are a writer, send me your stories to my email, and maybe you can see them featured on the channel. Have a good night.